Welcome, everyone. My name is Barb Hedrick. I'm with the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley, and we welcome you to the first candidate forum this evening with Cass County Commission candidates. This forum is being streamed live and also recorded for playback on the City of Fargo's government PEG TV channel, TV 56. This recording will also be posted on the League of Women Voters Red River Valley Facebook page and YouTube page. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. If you'd like to learn more about the League, please visit our website, or find us on Facebook, or talk to one of the volunteers here tonight. The League of Women Voters sponsors these candidate forums to provide the public with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss the issues that are important to members of the public. As a nonpartisan organization, the League does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The views expressed in each forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. And when we post the unedited recordings of these forums, editing is only authorized for official media reporting. No excerpts or edited clips of candidate forums may be used for partisan or political purposes. We thank the City of Fargo for providing the lovely City Commission chambers, and for the City of Fargo employee who is doing the recording tonight and handling the microphones as well. With our two candidates that we have with us tonight, we will allow each of them a 1 minute opening statement. Then we'll start asking questions submitted by the public and audience, by the audience members here, and also allowing each of them to answer those questions for 1 minute. And then we will close when our time runs down for a 1 minute closing statement. There will be a buzzer when the time runs out, but simply complete your thought. Don't worry about too much about going over just a little bit. One candidate who could not be here, Tony Grinberg, did submit a statement, and we allow those candidates who cannot attend to do so. And I will now read the statement before we begin our questioning. I am Tony Grinberg. I am running for the Cass County Commission seat currently held by Rick Steen. Rick's decision to not run for re-election and his encouragement along with other local leaders led me to believe my 22 years of state Senate experience combined with Fargo Commission experience would strengthen the County Commission for the future. My focus as County Commissioner would include support for economic and workforce growth strategies to grow Cass County, investing in our public safety protection for all residents, collaboration with state government and legislature, transportation/infrastructure, strong fiscal management of Cass County resources, 9/11 Emergency Dispatch Center, Red River Valley Water Supply Project. Thank you. So now we will start with the candidates with opening statements. Dwayne Breitling, you may go first.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for allowing this opportunity for us to visit. Mary Jane and I moved to West Fargo, which is basically District 4 in Cass County, in early 1967. We've been there ever since, and have actually, in our home we relocated in 1969. We have 4 adult children. 2 live in West Fargo, and 2 are in the South Bay area in California, 1 in Fremont and 1 in Los Gatos, just north of San Jose. We had the opportunity, Mary Jane and I, to celebrate our 60th wedding anniversary this past September 1. I think that speaks to our commitment to longevity and to the community. I have no more to welcome you on.
Thank you. Ben Hansen.
Thank you. Thanks to Barb and everyone who came out here tonight, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for allowing us this time to speak with our potential constituents about what we would be doing here on the Cass County Commission. My name is Ben Hansen. I am a former state legislator here representing Fargo and West Fargo. About 10 years ago, I was elected to the state legislature. I grew up here in Fargo, was born and raised. I have some work experience both in sales and on the project management side at Microsoft and BNSF, and for a while I spent time in the commercial real estate industry. I now work for a nonprofit, and in addition to these things, I have spent some time on volunteer boards such as the Government Relations Committee for the Fargo-Moorhead Area Realtors, and as the president of the Fargo-Moorhead Commercial Realtors Association. All of those things in my experience, plus the encouragement of some of my former legislative colleagues to run for this position, once current chair Rick Steen decided that he was going to retire from the county commission this year, encouraged me to run. So I'm looking forward to answering everybody's questions here tonight.
And we alternate who goes first as we go along. So Ben, you get the first question.
Sounds good.
What are your qualifications that make you a better candidate, and what made you decide to run for county commission?
Thanks. Well, I sort of just got into that, but I believe that my time spent in the state legislature has allowed me to kind of see both how the sausage is made as far as the state budget goes, and to form relationships with the kind of people that I believe the county commission should be working with and lobbying to achieve better policies for us here in the southeastern part of the state. I like to think I bring a good work ethic and a thoughtful approach to public policy, and that I'm a person that likes to study the minute details in things like county budgets, like water boards, and I think I could put that to use for constituents here in Cass County.
Thank you. Dwayne?
Pardon me?
Your turn, Dwayne.
The question?
Yes. What are your qualifications, and why did you decide to run?
My background is in the legal business. I'm a graduate of the University of North Dakota School of Law in 1965. I practiced law with the firm of Onstead Twitchell in West Fargo for 40-some years. During that time period, I personally represented several water resource boards throughout the eastern part of the state, and developed a substantial interest in county government because those water resource boards are creatures of the counties. The reason that I sought the office initially was that I thought that I could bring to the table, particularly with the diversion authority problems with land acquisition, a measure of experience that others might not have. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne, you get to start with the next question. What are the top concerns you have that you want to solve as county commissioner? Sort of builds on what you were just talking about.
There are three areas of principal concern. One of these is public safety. That's probably number one on my list. Number two would be education. And number three would be the appropriate and responsible utilization of public funds in the budgeting process. The third item I would cover more quickly right now, and that's the utilization of these of the CARES and ARPA funds that have been directly appropriated by Congress to the county. We've insisted that these be utilized only on one-time projects, which would eliminate the ability to sell bonds and pay for projects that would otherwise increase our tax load. One of these that should be of importance to the League of Women Voters is the 911 facility that we presently manage. And that's a concept that is managed by both Cass and Clay County, Moorhead, Fargo, and West Fargo. There will be substantial monies attributed to a new facility for that entity in the near term.
Thank you. Ben?
And that was the top three priorities, correct?
Just says top concerns. You can be three
Sure.
or more. We can
Sounds
get
good.
into a minute.
Sure. My top concern would be the same concern that is happening to the rest of the state of North Dakota, which is workforce. We have a dearth of workers for many, many job openings. If you talk to the Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation, they will be quick to tell you that we have over 4,000 jobs in the Cass and Clay County areas that pay over $70,000 a year, which is a very decent amount of money. So we need to ask ourselves why we're not being able to get the workforce to fill in those roles. One of the things I could see as a potential solution is a continued support of the trade school initiative that the Cass County Commission has seen fit to support, that I was partially involved with lobbying for funds with the Home Builders Association back when I was sitting on the public affairs board there, had a small hand in. And I think it's encouraging to get some of our young people coming up in our workforce to both stay here and consider a career in the trades, because not everyone is going to have a 4-year liberal arts degree career track post high school. Oh, I had 2 others, or at least more, but that's my time.
Maybe they'll come up in another question. Ben, we start with you. How can Cass County Commission address the child care crisis in the area?
That's an excellent question. We are almost 2 to 1 right now in waiting lists versus available areas. Right now, the average child care worker in our area is getting somewhere between $11 to $13 an hour. And if you drive up and down 45th Street, you can see shift manager positions at Chipotle and Qdoba that start at $17, $18, and $19 an hour. You can do the math and you can see where that goes. Cass County isn't going to be able to do anything to address child care alone. It's going to have to work with the state legislature. It's going to have to work with both, I would assume, at least the cities of Fargo and West Fargo. And it needs to work with the school districts, including our rural school districts like Northern Cass. That's installing a community center at their school right now as we speak. Tax credits are good, but some kind of an academy and help to professionalize the child care workforce would be helpful as well. There's not a silver bullet solution to it, but we need to be present and we need to be listening to those that provide child care services to address this.
Thank you. Dwayne?
The child care question is one that's going to be addressed dramatically at the state legislature in this upcoming session. And it's my position that we should vigorously support our local legislators in achieving a program that would be affordable for most daycare parents. It's important, to me at least, that we function through the state legislature and insist that our local legislators provide an opportunity for the care of children whose parents are necessarily employed outside the home. Thank you.
Dwayne, we start with you. This may let you get into whatever we would like here with this question. What do you think is the most neglected issue facing the Cass County Commission, and what would you do to solve this issue?
When you say neglected, by whom?
By the commission, I assume.
I don't believe the commission neglects anything of significance or importance. There are areas that need to be addressed, and one of those is job opportunities for the sheriff's department. And what we did during the course of 2022, even though it wasn't in the budget, we made a dramatic increase to the starting salaries of staff members of the sheriff's department in order to try to achieve full employment at their authorized level. In 2023, we will continue that increase so that we can provide public safety measures throughout the county. I'll elaborate on that later on because I see I'm out of time.
All right, thank you. Ben?
As far as issues that may have been neglected by the county commission, whether accidentally or I don't know how, I know that there was an investigation into an HR or just general worker demotivation at Fargo Cass Public Health, rather, about a year ago, and I don't feel like that's been followed up on. And when they're providing as important services as they are to our community, I think it needs to be stayed on top of by the county commission, and I would intend on doing that if I was elected to it. Additionally, somewhat piggybacking off of what Commissioner Breitling has said, when we are looking at COLA, that's cost of living adjustments, we are dealing with inflation nationally between 8 and 9%, and we all know that that's sometimes higher depending on what you're talking about, what kind of goods and services you are. The County Commission has seen fit to designate a 4% increase in cost of living with a temporary 10% boost to some of the workers at the jail, because as Robert Wilson, the county administrator, has said, they are looking at other private sector companies that could be more lucrative for them. We can't afford to be, once again, penny wise and pound foolish about our 500-member workforce with the county. We have to keep them instead of trying to get new employees and train more new employees.
Starting with Ben now, what should be the top budget priority for the Cass County Commission during your term?
I still think permanent flood protection needs to be the top priority. The FM diversion has been talked to death, and correctly so. We are still a community that does not have full permanent flood protection right now, and we all know, those of us who are living here, that 2 more feet in 2009 and we would have been an island. And we are looking here to still, as much as we have talked about it, we still need to protect the hundreds of millions of dollars of personal and commercial property that is here. That is going to be a continuing project. It's going to be a continuing cost. Inflation and labor costs are going to continue to go up, and we need to be there, walking hand in hand, communicating with both the cities, the states, and the federal government, and on both sides of the river. I'm planning on being as present as possible and supportive as I can be if elected to the commission.
Thank you. Dwayne?
And now the rest of the story. I'm going to steal a line from a commentator. What people don't understand is that Cass County has for years established a policy for compensation of employees that includes annual step increases. At the bottom of the salary scale for the county employees, those step increases range from 4 to 5%. At the top end, they're more likely to be at 2% for the department heads. The reason for the differential is that the lesser compensated employees use a greater portion of their income for basic needs like travel, food, lodging, and that sort of thing. Now, when you couple that with the COLA increase that we approved for 2023, the bottom end of that scale is going to have an 8 to 9% increase in their compensation. And the top is going to approach 6% increase in their compensation. People need to know the full program.
Thank you. And now, we started with Ben, right, on the previous question? Or?
He's starting next time.
Oh,
I
okay.
went last time.
It's your turn now, Ben, sorry.
What? No, it's his turn. I
Oh,
thought.
okay, it's his turn.
Right?
I'm just making sure you answered the previous question.
Yes, you did. Yes,
Okay.
I did.
What should the Cass County Commission be doing to protect ballot access for citizens voting in the county?
Do you want me to start?
Yes. Sorry.
In my opinion, the only thing is proper identification.
All right, thank you. Ben?
All right, the question was, how is Cass County Commission going to protect ballot access for voters? Voting is a right that our democracy is based on. As Cass County Commissioner, I would do everything I could to help encourage education and just awareness in voters as to what they need to bring to the polls, where those polls are, and have some hands-on time. We have a new election coordinator now at Cass County. I want to be hands-on at the County Commission to make sure there is a uniform application of standards at each one of our voting locations. I almost said precincts, but we've moved away from those. And I would like to be in touch with the Secretary of State's office to get more education for election judges and poll workers, as we had some misappropriation or different standards being utilized in our June election, as we saw earlier this year. We're going to have a new Secretary of State. We don't know who that's going to be yet, but that is a new opportunity to provide that much more awareness and just basic voter education and civics to both poll workers and voters. So we should be reaching out to the new Secretary of State. We should be reaching out to the public. And that's my time.
Okay. Remember, you are allowed to finish your thought. Next question, start with you, Ben. Homelessness is a growing problem in the county. How can the Cass County Commission help alleviate this problem?
Homelessness is a growing problem in Cass County and Clay County, unfortunately. And I mentioned Clay County on purpose because at the end of the day, it's a river. There are neighbors and friends too. And I think the main thing we need to focus on is prevention from the kind of people that could find themselves falling into a place of homelessness. Being able to help them, again, with workforce issues, with mental health and substance abuse treatment programs here at Fargo Cass Public Health and otherwise, and reaching out and listening to both that population and the population that works in emergency shelters, that sees them every day and sees these problems and knows what's happening and why these rates are increasing. We have to work and talk with law enforcement, but we have to do it in a careful and respectful way. There's been some of the opposite of that going on the city commission, and I do not think it's becoming of elected officials. I'd want us to approach it in a thoughtful way that helps us make the trend go into a downward trend for the future.
Thank you. Dwayne?
When visiting with the people who manage the Cass County Jail, we've been informed that almost half of those people are repeat offenders. And these fit into the homeless scheme that I believe exists in our community today. What the sheriff has done is initiated a program that's going to improve and increase the amount of training that residents of the Cass County Jail will receive so that they can have meaningful employment when they get out and no longer be homeless. That, I think, is a tremendous step, and it's going to be funded by the commission to the extent necessary. There is no question in my mind that programs of that nature are needed to address that problem.
Thank you. Starting with Dwayne, would you be willing to share your views on the marijuana legalization initiative that voters will decide in November?
I'm torn between both pro and con in that regard. I understand and realize that some of the users, excuse me, let me back up. There is a real need for medical marijuana, in my opinion. And I've been dealing with people within the county who've had the opportunity to utilize that with members of their family who were terminally ill. And I have a great deal of sympathy for that. In that regard, I am very positive about medical marijuana. Otherwise, I'm still hesitant to make a support of the measure as it's presently written.
Thank you. Ben?
Thank you. I believe I'm going to be voting in favor of Measure 2. I voted against the previous legalization measure mainly due to some of the sloppiness with which it was written. Explicitly, there was no criminal penalties for driving under the influence, which I did not find to be acceptable. But currently, I feel like our neighboring states, are moving in a direction towards legalization. And it's simply hard for me, despite being a non-participant, if you will, in the subject at hand, to think that we need to have a prohibition on something when anyone here and anyone in our state over the age of 21 can walk into a liquor store and buy an unlimited amount of alcohol any day of the week. It's not a uniform application of standards, and criminal records for when the crime is victimless is not helping us, either workforce-wise or societally. It has to be done very carefully. There are different levels of THC. Not all marijuana is the same. So the devil's going to be in the details, but I do think it's time to move forward with that. And I do hope if it passes, the state legislature does not monkey around and overturn the will of the people as it did last time. That is entirely inappropriate.
Thank you to the candidates for answering these questions. We are already running out of our time. And so this will conclude our question and answer portions. And we'd like to thank all the candidates and the audience, both here in the hall and as well as at home. And if you'd like to learn more about these candidates, especially for those of you at home or later when you get home, please go to the League of Women Voters vote411.org website. We are partnering with Forum Communications on this voter's guides. It helps provide you, let you know what will be on your ballot, and questions are answered by candidates across races in the state. And these two candidates have answered questions, and so we hope you will use that access and do more. And now we will finish with closing statements. And I believe, Ben, you get to go first this time.
Thank you very much again to the League of Women Voters, and for everybody who showed up here today to listen to a candidate forum, and for everybody watching at home. Local races are incredibly important, even if they don't always get the coverage that maybe they should. The Cass County Commission passed a $139 million budget for the year 2023. They help oversee and fund things like the FM diversion, Fargo Cass Public Health, work with the Sheriff's Office, and I, as your future commissioner, would look forward to working hard, showing up like I did here at this forum tonight, and listening to everybody that comes to our commission and treating them with the respect that they deserve as taxpayers. I'm a big believer in public service. I'm a very big believer in constituent services. I have a track record that's proven that, and I hope you'll consider voting for me on November 8th. Thank you so much.
Dwayne?
Thank you again. There is one item that I think should be very important to the League of Women Voters, and that's that during the primary election, there were over 5,000 ballots out who didn't bother to vote for the District 4 candidates, one way or the other. Now, I don't know if that was because of voter fatigue and we were at the very bottom of a very long ballot, or it may be that you don't understand that everyone in the county gets to vote for District 4. Everyone in the county. And they also get to vote, everyone in the county, for District 2. But obviously, there must have been some people out there who did not understand that, and it's your job as the League of Women Voters to make that concept understood by the voters of Cass County.
Thank you, Dwayne. And thank you to both the candidates for not only participating tonight, but also for being candidates and being a part of our democracy. And let's everyone give them a round of applause. We'll take some time now and set up for our next forum from the Cass County Sheriff's candidates.
All right. see the on-air sign. So good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone, all the candidates for joining us today for the forum for the Cass County Sheriff's Office. The forum is being hosted by the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley. My name is Ashley. I'm a co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley, and I'll be the moderator for this forum. For this forum in particular, the forum is being streamed live on the city's Facebook channel and also recorded for playback on the City of Fargo's government PEG TV channel, TV Fargo 56. This recording will also be posted to the League of Women Voters Facebook page and website within the next couple days. So if you do want to see a playback, or candidates, if you want to share the recording, it will be available on our website and on our Facebook page in the next couple days. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase the understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. If you would like to learn about the League, please visit our website or find us on Facebook. Before we begin, we do have a statement that we read related to the recordings of the forums and their use. The League of Women Voters sponsors candidate forums to provide the public with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss the issues that are important to members of the public. The League is a nonpartisan organization and does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The views expressed in each forum are those of the candidate, not those of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters posts complete, unedited recordings of the forums. Editing is authorized only for official media reporting. Excerpts or edited clips of any candidate forum may not be used for partisan political purposes. We do want to thank the City of Fargo for providing the space and technical assistance this evening, both the commission chambers, the space for the audience, the technical abilities that the City of Fargo chambers have is exceptional, and so we certainly appreciate their help. Before we begin, I just want to go through the rules and procedures. So I have 2 rows here of questions submitted from the audience, so thank you to the audience for being so active and engaged in submitting questions today. So they are submitted in written form on index cards that are then given to our volunteers. Questions may be screened for clarity or combined with other similar questions. All candidates will be given the opportunity to address each question. So the candidates participating tonight are for Cass County Sheriff. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their opening remark. Each will then be allowed 1 minute to respond to each question. And then at the conclusion of the question and answer period, candidates will be given another minute for a closing remark. The timer is right over here, right kind of above me. And it will count down and indicate the time when you're done. And then you will hear a buzzer, which means your time has expired. We just ask that you complete your sentence or thought when the buzzer goes off so that we can move on to the next candidate or question. And so we'll also alternate who begins. Opening statements will begin with Jesse Johnner, and then the first question, Matthew King will have the opportunity to answer that first, and then back to Jesse Johnner and back and forth and so on. And we are going until 7:05 tonight, so we'll take questions until probably about 7:03, and then allow for the candidates to do their closing remarks. So Jesse Johnner, we'll begin with you if you want to start with your opening remarks.
Sure. Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thanks everyone who's here this evening to take interest in the sheriff's race. My name is Jesse Johnner, and I grew up in North Dakota. I grew up in Strasburg, North Dakota, and I grew up in a military family and a law enforcement family. My dad was full-time in the military, and my grandpa was a sheriff in Emmons County. So throughout my youth, we moved a number of times. I graduated from Fargo North, and upon graduating Fargo North, I attended North Dakota State University, where I got my Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice. And immediately after that began my employment with the Cass County Sheriff's Office. I started at the very bottom at the Cass County Sheriff's Office and worked my way up to the Office of Sheriff. I started off in the jail. I worked in the patrol division. I worked in the investigative division. I worked for the Narcotics Drug Task Force, the Metro Area Street Crimes Unit. I was a captain overseeing special operations.
All right, thank you. Matthew King.
Like Sheriff, thanks everybody for allowing us to have this forum tonight. I'm Matthew King. I grew up in Hunter, North Dakota, My mom is from the Kindred area. My dad's from the Castleton area, so I have a lot of strong ties to Cass County. I started working on the farm when I was 8, so I have a big agricultural background. I got into law enforcement a little late in the game. I was in my 30s, so I started in 2011 as a reserve, where I got to work in many aspects of the office. That promoted me up into patrol. From patrol, I've been given opportunities to run the UAS, and I've instructed across this country for the last 6 years, on development of policy, procedures, budgets, and building successful units across this country. And then of late, I've gone into court transport.
Okay, all right. So for our first question, Matthew King, we'll begin with you. What would be your top priorities as Cass County Sheriff?
Top priorities: building the community relations, working on communication. Communication, we can all do better jobs, whether it's with our spouses, with our kids, coworkers, so on. We need to work on communication inside this office, I feel. Public safety is the next one, building those relationships with the communities. I'm a big COP guy, or community-oriented policing. I worked with Castleton a couple years back because as Sheriff has his burger cook-off to start off the National Night Off, I brought that into Castleton and had businesses. So not only does the community get to see law enforcement for a meet and greet, but now they get to meet other people of that community and just kind of build a better community.
All right, and Jesse.
My top priorities right now are increasing our capacity at the Cass County Jail. We've had some issues over the last few years with capacity there, and so I've been working diligently with our Cass County commissioners and our county administrator, along with some other outside organizations, to put together a plan to increase capacity there, because I think public safety needs to be the #1 top priority in our community, and definitely that's an issue for us right now. A couple of my other top priorities are, certainly we're having a lot of addiction and mental health issues, and so working together with our community partners to try to figure out a way that we can reduce the amount of addiction that we have in our community, and also work to curb some of the mental health issues that we're working through. And then finally, there's a shortage right now in law enforcement and the applicants and the amount of people that are coming into our field. And so,
All right. So Jesse, you'll start with answering our next question.
do we have an opportunity to finish our thoughts?
You certainly can, yes. I didn't mean to cut you off.
All right.
So for the next question, there's a number of questions related to your experience in law enforcement, but also specifically your experience in supervisory roles, since the Sheriff's Department has, I think one question said, over 200 people. So can you explain any supervisory roles that you've held specifically in law enforcement and how that translates to running the Sheriff's Office? So Jesse, we'll start with you.
Yes, that will help me finish off the first question. So during my time in law enforcement, I've had a lot of excellent opportunities through previous sheriffs to expand my knowledge in law enforcement. And at an early age in law enforcement, I knew that I wanted to eventually become sheriff. So I tried to work my way through a lot of different divisions to gain that knowledge. So I've both worked and supervised in investigations, patrol, special operations, a number of different ways that way. I've also had the opportunity to supervise in special operations capacity through Red River Valley SWAT and work through a lot of critical incidents. And also am a national certified instructor in law enforcement, so I've had the opportunity to gain knowledge that way in training other officers to become better.
All right, thank you. So Matthew King, same question for you. Describe your experience in law enforcement specifically related to supervision, if you can.
My supervision, if it comes down to it, is going to involve the UAS. I haven't had or held a position in supervisor inside of law enforcement, mainly because when I've tried to go to other units I've been told that UAS was supposed to be #1. I wasn't allowed to apply for SWAT. I wasn't allowed to try to do street crimes because UAS was supposed to be like the #1 topic. So I haven't held those positions, but as I've grown and taught across this country and helped a lot of agencies get over a lot of different humps with their policy or their budget, or learning how to speak with people, learning to speak with their other people on how to get the point across of what we're looking at on the UAS, because we take in a lot of data. So my supervisory skills are going to just be limited to UAS in that capacity.
All right, thank you. So Matthew, we'll begin with you for the next question. How can the Cass County Sheriff's Office decrease the number of people who end up in the jail because of mental health crisis?
I think that we have to look at the mental health as maybe increasing like 1 or 2, maybe 3 more people inside the jail, and work with state's attorneys and figure out what are we going to end up doing. We're seeing a little bit more mental health coming out from coming from the street into the court transport. You kind of see, and how I get to hear some of the things that are going on with people. Bringing that mental health capacity into kind of the jail reform and bail reform, like some of these guys might need a little bit of a different curve versus being locked up, as one would say, put away into the jail. But then on the backside of it, we need more mental health individuals to help facilitate these.
All right, thank you. Jesse.
Yeah, so there's a number of things that we've been working on to decrease the amount of mental health situations that we've been working through, and some of the people that have been coming into the jail. So we currently have a mental health coordinator at the jail, and that person is very important in identifying what types of mental health crises or help that person needs when they come into our facility. And through that coordinator, we can work with our community to try to get them assistance. 2 years ago at the legislative level, I lobbied to increase mental health services to our community. There was an effort to decrease some of those mental health services, and I lobbied against that, and we were successful in keeping some of those. I think that right now there's an issue with people coming into our facility with mental health issues and not getting the proper treatment and being able to be successful on the outside. So I think through our mental health coordinator and some of those programs that we've been working with collaboratively, we can curb that. Also, we've recently put together a work group of a bunch of community services along with Sanford Health to come up with different ways that we can work through some of the mental health situations that we've currently been dealing with in our community.
Okay, thank you. So Jesse, the next question will begin with you. Why is the expansion of the jail needed?
We started experiencing capacity issues in the Cass County Jail about 2 years ago, and I started recognizing that. And so I approached our commissioners and our county administrator and started giving them some of the numbers that we are seeing as far as capacity issues and the amount of people that were coming in. And working collaboratively with them, we've been working diligently to come up with a plan to increase capacity at the Cass County Jail. We have seen high numbers, and there's been instances where law enforcement officers making some arrests haven't been able to bring people into the Cass County Jail. And so that's certainly a public safety issue. And so we've been working over the last couple of years on a design of a new facility and a smart design, because we're experiencing a number of issues with mental health issues, like I mentioned already, addiction issues, intoxication management. And the jail was originally built in 2002. It didn't have those things in mind. And so the new construction of the jail or architecture of the jail, we're looking to design it so that we can focus on those particular issues that we're seeing in there, so that we can help start that rehabilitation process in the jail so that we can reduce recidivism and people don't come back.
Okay, thank you. So Matthew, same question. Why do you see the expansion of the jail as needed? Or do you, I guess?
Well, just like the sheriff said, there have been times where the jail has been full. But we also have to look at, with the expansion, one expansion is one thing, but if we keep expanding, are we helping the mental health issue or mental health issues? Are we looking at keeping people locked away. I want to start looking at, expand. If there needs to be another expansion, we also need to find bodies or staffing for that. So in the nationwide shortage that we have for staffing right now, we also have to look at the issues of how can we curb the amount of people being in there? Do we open up our CSU or community service unit to have more people out in the street where we can keep track of them? Because one of the issues I see is if we keep expanding and expanding on the jail, which I understand people want to have people locked away that have caused the crime, we need to find the staffing for it. And that's going to add pressure onto our people by watching more people, or nobody gets into the position to hold it. So if we can expand once, maybe look at doing it twice, but we got to find an alternative means for some of these people.
All right, thank you. So Matthew, the next question will begin with you. From a law enforcement perspective, would you share your views on the initiated measure that we'll be voting on in November on the legalization of recreational marijuana?
To share my views on it? What was the question?
Yes, so would you share your views, and you can do it from a law enforcement perspective or your own personal perspective. What are your views on the legalization of recreational marijuana?
Well, this question has been posed to me a couple times. If this gets approved, would you allow your deputies to partake in recreational marijuana because it would be legalized? And then that ends up causing issues throughout. I talked to an agency out west, and they said it just ends up, if we're going to legalize marijuana, we have to find a standard when it comes to DUI drugs. We have to find what is going to be a legal limit for it. There's a lot of different things that, like Colorado and Washington, have been working on, but I think the main question back to me so far on this is, would you allow your deputies to partake in recreational marijuana? And at this point, with so many unknowns, I would say no. I get that it would be legalized, but the deputies that are working, I would have to say no until more data or studies have been done and concluded.
Great, thank you. And Jesse?
Sure. So in our branches of government, we have two different branches. We have the executive and legislative, and our legislative branch is the branch that proposes laws or legislation, and that's how we get laws. And of course, the executive branch is the branch that enforces the laws, which would be law enforcement. So certainly legalization of marijuana is on the ballot right now, and the citizens will go to the polls and they'll vote on that, and our legislators will make laws governing that. Our job is to enforce the laws, and so however that vote comes out, we'll enforce the law. Do I have concerns about it? I do. I think that we're moving a little bit quick. I believe that we don't have maybe some of the proper infrastructure in place to deal with the legalization of marijuana, such as addiction issues and stuff like that. A number of the issues that we're currently dealing with in our jail and our capacity issues, because the majority of those are related to addiction. And so my concern is that maybe some of the infrastructure pieces aren't put into place before this goes forward. But certainly, whatever the voters vote on, that is how we'll enforce the law.
All right, so Jesse, the next question begins with you. Would you support a law prohibiting citizens from recording the actions of on-duty officers as have been passed in other states?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, would you support a law prohibiting citizens from recording the actions of on-duty officers as have been passed in other states?
I'm not opposed to citizens recording law enforcement officers. We already use body cams, and so that stuff's already recorded anyways. So I'm not against that. I'm speaking for the law enforcement in this area, and many of them that I know in all the agencies, and being able to train with them over the years. And the law enforcement officers that we have in this area are very professional. There's nothing that concerns me with our law enforcement officers being recorded in this area, because I know that they have a high level of integrity, professionalism, and there's no secrets. We want to be transparent in anything that we do. Prohibiting something like that only leads me to believe that someone would want to try to hide something by doing that. And I just feel like when our officers are out there, they're always maintaining that high level of professionalism and integrity. And And like I said, we're recording it anyways, and we can release that footage. And so anyone else recording it, that's fine with me.
And Matthew?
I have the same thought as the sheriff. As long as you're recording from a safe distance, don't come in and hinder the investigation of any way, shape, or form, but we are public officials. We are where the public has the right of access to be able to record. Have at it. If you start getting into too close and you get asked to back away, just back away. Continue recording, but I'm not going to tell somebody to stop recording because, like Jesse said, we're in law enforcement. We have body cams. If there's a spinoff of what they want to put out there, we can put out what happened on the body cam just as easy. So that's, have at her.
All right. So then, Matthew, this next question begins with you. Do you support the views of the Constitutional Sheriff and Police Officers Association that include the following? The view that the county, not the state or federal government, should control all the land within its borders, and that the county sheriff is the ultimate enforcement authority in the United States. Do you want me to read that one more time?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's like takes up the whole card
One more
here.
go around.
Okay, so do you support the views of the Constitutional Sheriff and Police Officers Association that include the following? The view that the county, not the state or federal government, should control all the land within its borders, and that the county sheriff is the ultimate enforcement authority in the United States.
I'm trying to figure out if I answer yes on this one. I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around it. But essentially what I gather out of it is, yes, the sheriff should be the one that controls the boundaries because you're elected by the people. Where the state, you get your legislation that goes out there, you have your governor that's out there, but your law enforcement sheriff is the one that's going to fight, defend, and protect your constitutional rights and stand up against anything that's unconstitutional and should be able to fight for anything that is unconstitutional. One of the questions that got brought up to me before is if I was sitting sheriff when the COVID and the mask mandates, would I take it to the aspect of tackling and arresting people that took place down in San Diego, I believe it was? And I would say no. I don't believe that our right as a sheriff is to make your medical decisions. And when it comes down to a mandate, it's a mandate. It wasn't a law that was put into place. And that's where I kind of stand where with the sheriff is I'm standing with you guys as the citizens. And I'm here to fight and defend and protect your constitutional rights.
Okay, thank you. And Jesse?
I do believe in the constitutional sheriff, much like has already been mentioned. As the sheriff, we are voted into office by the people or elected by the people, so we work directly for the people. As a sheriff, we take an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of North Dakota, and I stand by that. And I mentioned earlier that we have a legislative branch that creates laws in our state, and we have an executive branch that carries out those laws. And so I stick by anything that is constitutional. If it is unconstitutional, then that is something I would stand up against. And so I do very much believe in the constitutional sheriff, and that our main job is to enforce the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of North Dakota.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to try to sneak in one more question and combine a bunch of these. So Jesse, we'll begin with you. So basically we had a number of questions looking at what can the Sheriff's Department do to increase safety and quality of life for people in the county. So things like, reducing lawlessness, but also concerns about street racing and gun violence. So what can the sheriff do to help decrease crime and increase quality of life in Cass County?
Sure. So obviously my number one goal is public safety. And so we're always going to be concentrated on that. So we're always looking at ways that we can provide a higher level of public safety to our citizens. We certainly want Cass County to be a great place to raise a family and a safe place to raise a family so that everyone can prosper. There are a number of things that I've done since I've been sheriff to increase the safety to our community. One of those is assigning a number of our individuals to joint task forces that we have, the Metro Area Street Crimes Unit, SWAT, the Narcotics Drug Task Force. We've also recently added an intel analyst at our agency, and that person can look over reports that come into our office, gather other intel from other agencies, and that helps us direct our resources to those criminal activities that are occurring in Cass County. And it's also fiscally responsible to the taxpayers. We started a recent interdiction effort to where we can interdict, hopefully, narcotics coming into our area. We've done some interdiction downtown with the Fargo Police Department, and we've also teamed up with them. And finally, we have a number of proactive different types of programs that we offer to our citizens through our Adopted Community Program and meeting and working with our communities. And so all those ways, I think, are ways that we've definitely shown that we want to be proactive in curbing crime in our community.
Okay, thank you. Matthew.
Question again?
Okay, so it was a combining three questions, so I'm probably not going to say it exactly the same, but what can the Cass County Sheriff do to decrease crime and increase quality of life for the people in Cass County?
Right, and you mentioned about street racing.
Yes, that was one of the questions, issues that got brought up.
One of the ideas that I've had is trying to start a little metro unit. I want to try to hire anywhere between 28 and 32 brand new people right now. Some go to patrol to cover the areas of Cass County to have a better reaction time. Some, possibly 9 right now, and my idea is to work inside of Fargo, West Fargo. Because of the number of calls that are happening and transpiring, instead of using and allocating our assets out in the county right now, I want them inside of Fargo. And having 2 people working during the day, 2 people at night, and having a sergeant kind of overlooking this idea, they can help out Fargo PD with some of the street racing that you have mentioned, not only with the cars, but you have the motorcycles. If there is a shooting or when it comes to gun violence, it comes down to you don't know when it's ever going to happen. You don't know when somebody's going to decide to go pull that trigger. But we would have resources inside of Fargo at that point to help Fargo PD or help West Fargo PD with having my little metro unit that I have in mind to help out the safety of all citizens of Cass County, to include West Fargo and Fargo.
All right, thank you. So this concludes the question and answer portion of the forum. Just want to thank the audience for submitting such a nice variety of questions for the candidates to answer. And we want to thank the candidates for participating. For the audience at home, if you'd like to continue to learn more about the candidates, the League has partnered with Forum Communications to present vote411.org. It's a voter's guide to help you learn more about North Dakota candidates' positions on important issues. And so if you go in and put in your address, you can actually see all of the candidates that are going to be on your ballot, and you can compare their answers to the different questions that were posed. So you can stay tuned to the forum and the League's Facebook page. The voter's guide is live right now at vote411.org. And I do just want to put in a friendly reminder. The general election, as we can see up on the screen, is November 8th. But in Cass County, early voting begins October 31st in person if you want to go to a voting site. Mail-in voting, absentee ballot voting is ongoing right now. But if you like to go to an actual polling location, early voting begins October 31st. All of that information also available on vote411.org, also describes what you need to bring with you when you go to the polls, and basically everything you would need to cast your vote. So check it out. All right, so Matthew, we will do closing statements. You will go first for closing statements.
All right. Well, once again, thank you everybody for tuning into this, showing up tonight, asking the questions. I have many different ideas with my forward thinking of thinking outside of the box and trying to push people to become better. If I become sheriff, I want the deputies and the people working for me to take pride in their work. I want them to strive to be their very best and go succeed. At the end of the day, we're all leaders in one way or another. And if we don't help mentor the next go around, at some point, there's going to have to be somebody that's going to replace him, or it's going to be somebody that's going to replace me. And we have to teach our people and lead them and trust in them to get the job done.
All right, thank you. Jesse.
Yeah, law enforcement is facing challenging times, no doubt. Our community is facing more challenges. And And as the sheriff, we need to protect our constitutional rights of our citizens and provide a high level of public safety to our community so our community remains a safe place to raise a family. As sheriff, I'm going to be someone who is going to remain professional, keep a high level of integrity for our agency, and we're going to be forward-thinking. I think we've proven that over the last 3.5 years under my leadership with some of the programs that we've implemented. I've been able to lead our office through some challenging times. I've led during 2 different floods. I've led during civil unrest in our community. I've led during a pandemic and also a shortage in law enforcement officers. There's been a number of different types of programs and things that we've implemented to make it through those challenging times. And most definitely, like I said earlier, we still face some of those. And so I think that my leadership has proven itself up to this point, and I'm looking forward to leading the sheriff's office into the next 4 years.
All right, thank you. And thank you, candidates. Let's give them a round of applause. Next forum will begin in 10 minutes. It's for Cass County State's Attorney.
Good evening. Thank you for the candidates for attending this evening. This candidate forum is hosted by the League of Women Voters. My name is Mary Tintis, and I'll be your moderator for this forum. This forum is being streamed live and recorded for playback on the City of Fargo's government PEG TV channel, TV Fargo 56. This recording will also be posted to the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley Facebook page and our website. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. If you'd like to learn more about the League, please visit our website or find us on Facebook. The statement regarding the recordings of candidate forums. The League of Women Voters sponsors candidate forums to provide the public with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss the issues that are important to members of the public. The League is a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The views expressed in each forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. The League posts complete unedited recordings of the forums. Editing is authorized only for official media reporting. Excerpts or edited clips of candidate forums may not be used for partisan political purposes. I'd like to thank the City of Fargo for hosting this event, providing the space and the technical assistance for tonight's event. I'd like to say thank you to the volunteers who are here this evening and to the audience for many great questions that they have provided for our candidates tonight. So before we begin, I'd like to review the rules and procedures. Questions have been submitted in advance on cards, and they have been screened for clarity or combined with similar questions. All candidates are given an opportunity to address each question. Our candidates tonight, Kim Hegvik and Ryan Youngren, are running for Cass County State's Attorney. Each of them will have 2 minutes for their opening remarks, and then they will be allowed 1 minute to respond to each question. At the conclusion of the question and answer period, the candidates will be given another minute for their closing remarks. We have a timer, which will indicate how much time is remaining, and will indicate when your time is done. When you hear the buzzer, that means your time is up, but you certainly may complete your statement, your sentence or your thought. So we will begin our opening statements tonight with Kim Hegvik.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us and for hosting this event. My name is Kim Hegvik, and I'm running for Cass County State's Attorney. I have been at the State's Attorney's Office now for it will be 16 years next week. I'm running on a smart on crime approach. It has 3 main components. The first is to reduce crime. The heart of what the State's Attorney's Office does is to keep our communities safe. The second is to lower costs, to promote responsible spending. And the third is to strengthen connections and partnerships between the Cass County State's Attorney's Office, law enforcement, the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, but also treatment providers, homeless health, and other entities. I believe that if we do all of these things, we can have a smart on crime approach, we can make our community safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Youngren.
Thank you. For the last 21 and a half years, I have been a criminal prosecutor, and I have handled and stood up in court for victims and for the community in some of the toughest cases that our county has. I have done 146 trials. I'm the only one on the ballot that has managed a violent crime caseload. In my vast experience, I have also spent 2 years working with one of the nation's first drug courts. I have also worked extensively on developing the judgment to know when you put violent and repeat offenders in prison and in jail, and also when you take cases where people have addiction issues and mental health and you find them treatment and give them a second chance. My family has also experienced some of the epidemics in our community of fentanyl overdoses and also of suicide. I care deeply about this community and the people and have held many leadership roles. Tough and fair is the best way to describe my leadership style, And that's what I would bring to the Cass County State's Attorney's Office.
Thank you. And we'll begin the first question with Ryan. Ryan, for those who are not familiar with what the State's Attorney's Office does, can you talk about the primary roles and responsibilities and how you would show your leadership on a daily basis in that role?
So the primary responsibility of the State Attorney's Office is to prosecute crime. That is, I'm going to say 90% of what we do, and a very important role for all our attorneys at the office. Now, what has been described, my leadership style, is the kind of person who asks people to do things that he has also done himself. I have gotten in there and done the tough things of the office. I'm very proud of that record. Done the trials, done the other work that we have. I have actually worked on all of the teams that we have at the office. There are also many facets that include juvenile court, the property, the drugs, the personal team, the violent crime, and there's also downstairs we have a child protection unit as well. And so as the office manager, you manage all of those teams, but right now what we're seeing in Cass County is a big spike in violent crime, and I think I'm well suited to address that problem.
Thank you. Kim?
I agree with what Ryan had said. The lion's share of what our office does is prosecute crime. We also have a number of other enumerated duties that come from the North Dakota Century Code. We handle civil commitments of people who are mentally ill or have substance use disorders that makes them immediately dangerous to themselves or others. We advise the department heads. We participate in the Cass County Commission meetings. So there's a number of things that we do. I am also a leader in our office, a team leader in our office. Currently, I manage the economic crimes team and traffic teams. Although I haven't been specifically assigned to the personal crimes team, I've handled cases across the office, everything from those civil commitments, juvenile hearings, also all of the adult crimes, and I've had one of our drug courts, at least one, since I started 16 years ago.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Kim on this question. Do you view addiction and mental health behavioral issues as primarily medical or criminal issues? And do you believe that drug dealers who sell drugs like meth and fentanyl should go to prison?
So I think that we can love the sinners and hate the sin. I think that using controlled substances is more of a public health issue rather than a moral failing. That doesn't forgive people from the actions that they take while they're on substances. So drinking is legal. If you drink and you drive, that's illegal, and there's definitely a difference there. Holding people accountable is important. I think that in North Dakota, our definition for distribution of drugs is broad enough that it covers everything from bringing a substance to a party and sharing it with your friend, all the way up to selling millions of pills. And I think there's definitely a difference there. I think that we're fortunate in that we have the U.S. Attorney's Office to help us when we've got those major drug cases, and I have no problem prosecuting people who are large-scale dealers. But I think underlying causes for people's criminal behavior can be substance use disorders that we can treat.
Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Drug dealers, and especially things like fentanyl and meth and heroin, those guys go to jail and prison, period. Let me tell you that an approach to the drug issue and the drug problem in our country includes both attacking the demand and the supply side of things. Now, again, as criminal prosecutors and looking at the fact that we prosecute crime, that is the very definition of our job, it is our role to hold those folks responsible. When there are things that we can do on the supply side, like I mentioned in my opening, for people that have addiction, or if there are mental health issues and we can hook them up with the right people in the community, that's great, and that's what we should do when they're there on lesser crimes or just possession crimes or the like. Those are very important, but those people we can do something and move on, and that's what we do every day at our office, is hook those people up with services. But people that are pushing that stuff, that are dealing the fentanyl and the major drugs in our community, those folks need to be prosecuted and go to jail and prison.
Okay, thank you. The next question will start with Ryan. If elected, what would you do to ensure that Native American and African American youth with mental health challenges in our community are treated fairly and comparably to all youth with similar challenges?
So your question talks about some of the minority communities with mental health issues and the like. Now, again, I have to focus people back on the prosecutor's office. Again, our job being that to prosecute crime. Okay. Now, if we are dealing with people who have, and we've seen this recently, like with Arthur Colley, who have professed to have mental health issues and drug issues, but then they murder a 14-year-old girl, those people need to be held responsible. Those people need to face the consequences for what they did. I'll go back to the answer that I just gave. If we've got people that are in on property crimes, low-level type crimes, they're not repeat offenders, they're not violent, to me, whatever your nationality is, whatever your ethnicity is, those are the type of people that we hook up with services wherever we can. We spend a lot of time doing that at the office through the probation department and other community partners, but we're not a treatment facility. That's not what we do, and those programs are largely voluntary, especially like drug court and the like. And those folks that are willing and ready to engage in treatment services, we should facilitate that when they're not violent crimes.
Thank you. Kim, same question.
Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. If elected, what would you do to ensure that Native American and African American youth with mental health challenges are treated fairly and comparably to all youth with similar challenges?
In North Dakota, we, I think, are among the front runners as far as juvenile justice issues are concerned. So we have been aware for a while of the concept of disproportionate minority contact with our youth. The juvenile court team has actually gone to national training, and they've been working on ways to reduce that disproportionate minority contact among our youth. One of the things that we did while I was still prosecuting juvenile cases was instituted an objective screening tool, because we knew that children of color were being taken to detention more frequently for the exact same crimes or delinquent activity that white children were not being brought to detention. The objective screening tool took out race and color, and it did result in less children of color being taken to the detention center. I think that's an example of the innovation that our system is willing to do, and I think we need to continue to try to do better.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Kim on this question. In certain family law matters, law enforcement is often reluctant to assist parties in the enforcement of judgments as to custody and parenting time issues. What are your thoughts on what can be done to improve this?
Family law draws out the passions on both sides. The orders are put into place, custody orders are put into place by judges, and being able to review them is an important aspect of what the judges do. I don't think that we can be purely reactionary unless a child is in danger. And then we have the procedures in place where a child can be removed from a home, placed in shelter care, and we can follow up with social services to see what is appropriate. But the vast majority of the time, it's my belief that the family law courts and their rulings are what should determine what's happening within those family law cases. And it's not our job or law enforcement's job to second guess those rulings without direction from the court.
Thank you. Ryan?
May I ask for the question again, please?
Yes. In family law matters, law enforcement is often reluctant to assist parties in the enforcement of judgments as to custody and parenting time issues, exchanges, I would assume. What can be done to improve this?
So to improve that, again, I'm going to go back to my theme here so far. It's been that the prosecutor's office prosecutes crime. okay? And so we're not there, even though we're the public prosecutors, to prosecute civil disputes. We absolutely consider, and it's a judgment call sometimes. I've gotten these calls many times from folks in law enforcement. It's a judgment call sometimes on whether somebody has kidnapped an individual. Is there a crime there? Somebody is not following a court order, and we have to pull the court order out, and we actually have to look and see what the language says in the court order. And if it says shall arrest or something of that nature in it from the judge themselves, then we may have to take a hard look at that and decide, is there something criminal we can do here? But we need to tread carefully in that area because unless the focus is on the children and unless they are in danger or that there are problems with drugs or alcohol, then largely we stay out of those civil hearings.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next question, we'll start with Ryan. What are your views on the marijuana legislation initiative on the November ballot here in North Dakota?
Thank you. The voters are going to decide this issue. Now, I am not and would not lead an activist's office, okay? So it's not our job to decide if it's going to stay status quo or if it's going to move into something different. The status quo as it is right now is that possession for less than a half ounce of marijuana is an infraction, and we routinely recommend a $100 fine. That is the status of our law right now. So any of the hyperbole about people going to prison or other things that might be out there right now in the national dialogue is not what happens in Cass County. Now, once the voters decide that issue, then that will give us the guidance as to what we decide to do. It does not come without costs, and I think people should understand that as well, that anytime you put more substances out there, you may have issues with more addiction that put strains on our resources. You might also have more to do with intoxicated drivers or the like on the road, and that puts strain on our resources. So all of those things just need to be fully considered, and everybody needs to think them through.
Okay, Kim?
When we talk about freeing up resources, I think that we still are prosecuting marijuana cases every day. And the lower level offenses, yes, they start out as infractions, but if you get a couple of them, it becomes a B misdemeanor and you can arrest people for those. A lot of people have marijuana convictions on their records that impact their daily lives. And like we've talked about, violent crime is a concern in our community right now. Every time law enforcement is responding to a call about marijuana, that's taking time away from when they could be responding to a violent crime call. I absolutely agree that if we legalize, if the voters decide to legalize marijuana, we're going to have to figure out what that looks like as far as regulation, how it will impact employers, how it will impact our driving laws. There's no question we're going to have to look at some things.
Thank you. Okay, this question will start with Kim. Is there a role for the state's attorney's office to help reduce recidivism rates in the county?
Absolutely. I think that our office handles over 8,000 cases a year. And it's important for us to not only be effective in the courtroom, but also to look at what we can do outside of the courtroom to either stop people from getting involved in the criminal justice system in the first place, or to minimize that impact and hopefully pull them out as quickly as possible, but then also support things on the back end. So if people are re-entering into the community, what does that look like to help cut down on people committing new offenses? I think there are a variety of things that prosecutors can do to aid in those things. We are in a unique position because we have access to the courts, we have access to law enforcement, we have access to the Department of Transportation. Something as simple as helping somebody get a photo ID takes me a couple minutes to make a call that it might take that homeless person a long time to establish. And something like a photo ID is a huge help to a person trying to get housing and a job and all of those things. Our office can have a big impact all the way around.
Thank you. Ryan, same question.
So we had an experiment here a couple of years ago called COVID. And what we did with that was we let a lot of people out. The sheriff's here in the audience tonight, and I remember working with him and working with some of the captains at the jail in trying to minimize close contact between inmates. What we saw in a lot of instances with repeat and violent criminals was they went right back out on the street and did the same thing again. I can recall cases of individuals that had 5, 6, and 7 felonies before they were actually kept in custody. That was part of the recidivism that I'm talking about here. We as the system is there for a reason, and it plays an important role of taking people out of an immediate situation, taking people away from immediate danger, and putting them into a system where they can be more controlled. I think that can be very valuable, but on the drug side, there's a ton we can do there as well. We do in drug court, the community supervision unit, also with pretrial release, we do some things there that are very valuable to keep people in jobs and doing things in families and responsibilities to kids that will also keep them from reoffending. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this question will start with Ryan. What is the role of the state's attorney in protecting citizens' access to the ballot and protection from any intimidation of voters or election workers?
It's very important. I mean, this is a fundamental right for all of us, is the right to vote. And no doubt, many of us put on the top of our civic responsibilities jury service and voting. And here we are. Nobody knows this better than Kim and I sitting up here at this table running for office. And so for the folks that are valid voters in a valid jurisdiction, that's very important. And whether it's ID issues or the like, I've seen some stuff come out from our office and from the election commissions and stuff right now where folks can petition if they have some issues with their IDs and some other things, they can vote and then they can be held off to the side. But intimidation, of course, if it raises to the level of a crime, that's where prosecutors step in, that's where sheriffs and other law enforcement step in, and that's a process that is very sacred to us and one that we have to protect.
Thank you. Kim, same question.
I agree that we need to be protecting people's rights to vote. It was very concerning to me when I heard that people who were new Americans in particular were having a very difficult time casting ballots during the primary election. I think that we need to be, our office actually helps to train people who work at the polls. And I think it's very important to make sure that they're all trained uniformly so that they treat people with the last name Johnson the same way that they would treat somebody who's named Muhammad. If they're asking for a photo ID for one, they should ask that for the other, and they shouldn't make the barriers higher based on people who don't look Scandinavian Midwestern. I think it's extremely important that we protect the integrity of our elections, and our office can do a part in that, in making sure that we're doing appropriate training and holding people accountable if things aren't going well at the polls.
Thank you. We have several questions here that address the needs of the defendant or the victim. So essentially, how would you ensure that individuals who enter the state's courts receive equal access to justice? And we'll start with Kim.
Well, it goes right back to the answer I gave before. We should be treating people the same, regardless of their last name, regardless of the color of their skin. When we look at cases in our office, they all come over as black and white reports. A lot of times I don't know what the background is of the person that I'm reviewing a case on to determine what charges are appropriate. But I think at the same time, we have to be aware that there is implicit bias. People have it. And it's important to recognize that and to figure out what you can do to counteract that. I think it's important that ongoing training occur so that people working on our field understand that they have those biases and treat defendants the same, no matter what their country of origin is, what their background is. Everyone should be treated the same.
Thank you. Ryan?
I think Yeah, thank you. I think one of the things that people don't realize from the outside, and this isn't something you would necessarily see on a TV show like Law and Order, is that crime is committed by people on their own communities and on their own families. Okay, why is that important to this conversation? Because when those folks come into our office or file police reports and ask for us to stand up for them for justice and to fight for their rights, we do it. That's what we do. That is, I will tell you, when I started my career, I started in a major downtown metro city in the United States. Some of the parts of town, I was a minority. That didn't matter because the victims that I had, the defendants that I had, were from the same communities. And those types of things for us and for me were very important to stand up for them. And I garnered a lot of respect for the work that I've done over the years with jury trials and with victims and victim organizations like rape and abuse.
Thank you. This concludes the question and answer portion of the forum already. Thank you again, candidates, for participating. And for the audience at home, if you'd like to continue learning more about your candidates, the League has partnered with Forum Communications to present the vote411.org Voters Guide, online guide, to help you learn more about North Dakota candidates' positions on important issues. So stay tuned to the forum and the League's Facebook page. The voter guide is live now on vote411.org. We will start with closing remarks from Ryan, please, and you have 1 minute.
For the last 21 and a half years, I have been a criminal prosecutor. It has been my life's work and passion. I am tough and I am fair. The Cass County State's Attorney's Office has a lot of great people that work there, from clerks and receptionists to legal assistants to victim witness advocates, and also to the attorneys. With that passion and that dedication that I have for our work, I would hope to lead with inspiration. Tough and fair, that would be my approach. I want to thank you to the League of Women Voters for setting up this forum for us. And also you can visit my Facebook and website at youngrenforstatesattorney.com. And I ask that you vote for me on November 8th. And it also happens to be my birthday. So that's the only present I want this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim?
Well, thank you also for the League of Women Voters for hosting this candidate forum. I think it's important for people to tune in to what's going on with the local elections because we have an impact on what happens to people every day here in Cass County. I would ask people if there is something about the Smart on Crime message that resonates with you, if you like the ideas that I have and the vision that I have, please check out my website. Please Google Kim Hegvik. It's there, Kim for Cass County. I have a Facebook account, Kim for Cass County. And please reach out to me because yard signs are great and digital billboards are fantastic, but they don't vote. So please keep me in mind on November 8th. Also, early voting begins on October 31st, and absentee voting is going on right now. And don't feel bad if you take away Ryan's birthday present.
Thank you. And as we have received so many good questions from the audience, we didn't get to all of them. But do reach out to the candidates and ask them your questions directly. So at this point, I'd like to say thank you, and we should give our candidates a round of applause.